The Tempest, Act 1, Scene. Learning Objectives. Learning Objectives. At the end of this module, the learners will be able to get acquainted with the exposition of the play, to understand the setting, the plot, and the dramatis personae of The Tempest. Act 1, Scene 2, Part 1. To critically evaluate the dramatic significance of the scene with regard to the progression of the events in the play. To analyze the character traits of the major characters as they appear in this part of the play. This module consists of the following concepts: Introduction to the scene, scene setting. Act 1, Scene 2 is a lengthy scene, wherein the real exposition of the play takes place. Shakespeare wants to acquaint the readers with all that has gone before and all that is to come after. It is done by using the device of a conversation between the two characters, Prospero and his daughter Miranda. Prospero tells his daughter how they landed on the island. Prospero, in his speech, establishes a connection with what has happened in the first scene. Act 1, Scene 2 is set on the island, with Prospero and Miranda watching the ship as it is being tossed by the storm. Miranda knows that her father is creating the storm with his magical powers, and she pleads with him to end the storm and save the ship. The dramatis personae appearing in this scene are the following: Prospero, the rightful Duke of Milan; Miranda, the daughter of Prospero; Ariel, an airy spirit; and Caliban, a savage and deformed slave. Let us now get acquainted with the plot of the scene. As it is a lengthy scene, we discuss in this module the plot pertaining to the first part of the scene only. Act 1, Scene 2 begins with Prospero and Miranda standing on the shore of the island watching the shipwreck. Miranda begs her father to see that no one on board may be harmed. Prospero assures her that he has protected everyone who is on board from harm with his magical powers. Then he tells her that it's time she learned who she is and where she comes from. Miranda becomes curious, mentioning that Prospero has often started to tell her about herself, but always stopped. Prospero tells Miranda that he was the rightful Duke of Milan. He had great interest in the study of philosophy and magic, and left the control of the state's affairs in the hands of his brother Antonio. He grew ambitious, and in order to usurp his dukedom, he made a secret deal with the King of Naples. Then, one night, they were ousted from the palace. At that time, she was 3 years old. Prospero and his daughter were put aboard a small rickety boat with no mast nor sails, and were left to die in the sea. But Gonzalo, a noble courtier of Naples, provided them with food, water, rich garments, and other necessities. He also kept Prospero's important books in the boat. Thus they survived and arrived on the island. There he brought her up. He tells his daughter that he raised the storm to bring his enemies close to him. Then he makes her sleep with his magical power. Now, let us read and understand the play. The following slides consist of the original text of the play. You may click or tap on the difficult word. Now, let us critically evaluate the significance of this part of the play. As it is mentioned earlier, the real exposition of the play takes place in this scene, and it is done by using the device of a conversation between the two characters, Prospero and his daughter Miranda, in the beginning of the scene. Prospero, in his speech, establishes a connection with what has happened in the first scene. The scene moves into a long sequence devoted largely to telling the play's background story, while introducing the major characters. Shakespeare has employed the retrospective method to establish a connection between the first scene and the second scene. Through the conversation between Prospero and Miranda, Shakespeare wants to inform the audience of their history. The audience needs to know what made Prospero to stir up the storm, and why the men on board the ship are his enemies. By sharing this information, the audience can conclude that Prospero is justified in seeking vengeance. At the very least, Prospero must make Miranda sympathetic to this choice. Let us analyze the character traits of the dramatis personae who appear in the opening scene. At first, Prospero. Prospero, the protagonist of the play, is the rightful Duke of Milan. His brother Antonio seized Prospero's title and property when he was in pursuit of knowledge. He has been living with his daughter Miranda in exile on a remote island for the past 12 years. He is a powerful magician, and by using his magical powers, he whips up a furious storm. He controls the entire island, but seems to be helpless against his enemies until they appear on a ship nearby. When they are nearby the island, he uses his magic to create a storm and bring them under his control. He is a very affectionate father. He loves his daughter Miranda dearly. He remarks, "I have done nothing but in care of thee, my dear one, thee, my daughter." Prospero is considered as the hero of the play. However, he is not blameless. He was more interested in his books than fulfilling his responsibilities as a duke. By neglecting his duties, he gave his brother a chance to rise up against him. Now, let us try to make a character sketch of Miranda on the basis of her appearance in this scene. Miranda, the only daughter of Prospero, is a simple and innocent girl. When she was 3 years old, she and her father were banished from their dukedom. Miranda's compassion is evident in the scene as she is deeply moved by the miserable plight of the passengers on the ship that was tossing in the furious storm. She feels very sympathetic towards the suffering passengers and asks him to end the storm.